troubles surround me, and I just can't find my way. I close my eyes, I go inside, and from somewhere within me, I raise my voice and say, I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power every minute, every hour. I have access to the power within me.
I'm a little on fire. I could have written this book, I think. She might have been channeling me. It moves me to tears, because how many of us have ever not done anything because we were so afraid of someone else's opinion? Right? And so she is a psychologist, and as I have not met her yet, even though I know she's been on the Unity circuit. What I've learned about studying over with her for the last 4 years is that we've got to stop that voice that we might have heard very early on in 3rd grade, you're not an artist, or in 1st grade, that's not how little boys behave, or whatever it is that happens. And it reminds me to be a better Nana with my little ones as well, that I get out of the way of being Therese and let's be Nana and let the kids be kids. But we all grow up, don't we? And sometimes those things that we were told we didn't do well or we shouldn't do, even though we don't should on ourselves in Unity, we've been should upon, have we not? Yes? And so we have to unlearn those things. And I was just talking the other day with one of the classes that I'm teaching. I've been in Unity 30 years and I'm still learning things. It's so exciting to be in a class or come to a service and get those, what I call God bumps, when the little pricklies happen up, and some people call them goosebumps, and I believe they're God bumps. For me, it means I'm either having an aha moment or God is trying to have its way with me. And so it has my attention. And that's what this book is about. Can we, in fact, get our electronics to work in the morning? Or not? We'll see here. Can we understand that we do not have to hold shame about anything? Shame means should have already mastered everything. S-H-A-M-E. Should have already mastered everything. How can we? If we've never been in that situation before, how could we have already mastered it? But teachers have expectations, ministers have expectations, doctors have expectations. Anybody else in our life that seems to have authority has an expectation of us. And so what I hope after the 4 weeks and what Reverend Rose and I have been talking about, that you're so empowered that you're going to wear yellow for the first time ever in your whole life. And that's today, as I put it. I've never worn this color yellow ever because I'm a redhead. I don't know. How old was my mom? I mean, my mom died when I was 10, so somewhere between the age of 1 and 10, I learned I should not wear pink or yellow. I've worn pink before, so yellow is today. Yellow is today. So the affirmation that we have is, I am the courage to show up and be seen. I am the courage to show up and be seen. So let's say that together. I am the courage to show up and be seen. Now, that doesn't mean you have to necessarily be loud like I tend to be, because one of my core values and one of my mission statement parts is to love out loud. But I also am quiet when I love. It's just, what are your vision and mission qualities, and how are you living them? And so I am the courage to show up and be seen, which means when last minute all the music changes because BA shows up in town, everybody's able to say, it's great, yes, oh, let me move over, let's create a space, let's raise the microphone, lower the microphone. Isn't it fabulous? That's what it means, that you're willing to be part of a team, which means there's no I in it, but never at the expense of the I of you. And as a middle child of 11, I often learned to be part of a team at the expense of me. And so that's another thing I'm unlearning as well. And I think I'm going to be unlearning things and learning new things until forever. You know, I just turned 58, and to think that you're still learning things, it's fabulous. And that's what unity is all about. The song that they sang first was, I create the condition of wellness within. That's certainly something that we teach in unity. That our thoughts held in mind produced after their kind. So we get to be in charge of our thoughts. The other question I get a lot as a minister is, how come unity isn't bigger? Because it's work. It's tough, right? It's work. It means, oh my gosh, I'm accountable to who? Me and my God of understanding, of my own understanding. Not to any of you. Although it may seem that way, right? But it's not. I have to be accountable to myself, and because I said I would to God, then that's how I show up. And that's not always easy. And it's easier to just blame somebody else because they're being lame. That's when I see the word blame, I go, oh, they're being lame. And that is a judgment, and I own it when I say it, right? But we want to stop the judgments that are stopping us. So the scripture that I chose is, the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life. And that is from Job 33:4. So the Spirit of God made all of us, right? We are the divine idea, born in the image and after the likeness of all that is great and all that's good. Everybody, no matter what color hair you have, how tall you are, how not tall you are, how fat, how skinny, color of your skin, teeth, no teeth, doesn't matter. We are all. And I think that's what's happening in the world with all that's happening through actions maybe that we don't really always like, is that people are understanding, oh wait, we're all equal. We're all equal. But we have to treat ourselves with great respect and with great love so that it can be emulated out into the world. And people go, oh, look at her. Even in diversity, she stands. Right. That's our job, is to be all that we've come here to be. And the breath of the Almighty gives me life. Not the Almighty outside of me, the Almighty inside of me. So every time I breathe correctly, right, all of you breath people out there, we breathe from our belly, our Buddha belly. So if you don't have a Buddha belly, pretend you do, and stick it out and breathe from there, not from here. And I have learned that I have been living most of my life breathing very shallowly from my chest, which means that I'm not getting the breath of life through all my limbs and things like that, especially when fear happens. And so Reverend Rose and I decided on this book a couple months ago. So, of course, as you know, when ministers decide on what they're going to speak, they're going to have to live it first, just in case they don't get it. So I invite you to breathe with me as well. So just this week, I was in Melbourne. I'm moving to Melbourne. You know, Reverend Rose and the kids have bought a house, and so Therese gets to move as well. And so I'm going to be moving in with a friend down in Melbourne, and my husband was from Melbourne. But, you know, he's been gone now 14 years was when we originally left Melbourne. And so I'm in the store, and someone comes up to me and says, aren't you Tom Lee's wife? Which I would have hated when he was alive. Like, excuse me, I have a name. But now I'm like, yes, I am. And she, how is he? And oh, shit. It's okay. It's a word, and it is something we do. She didn't know that he had died. So tears come. I'm in the store. I'm breathing from here, which means I'm not breathing. My throat is closing. I'm 58 years old. He's been gone for 4 years. How does this happen? Vulnerability, yes. In that moment, I said, oh my gosh, you didn't know. So yes, blah, 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 da, 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 da. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, thank you. And I got in the car. Of course, I'm beating myself up like, oh, he's in the middle of the store. You're crying. That talk that we have of ourselves, yes? And then I realized, wait a minute. Thankfully, I cannot control my vulnerability. I am so grateful that when I said I would be truthful and honest and real all the time, there's no off switch now. So I really have to monitor. So I will be prepared the next time I go into another store in Melbourne that maybe this will happen again. I was not prepared. Are you always prepared for all your life stuff? And shift happens, doesn't it? Shift happens. And so what I learned is, okay, wow, so now this person and I will have a different kind of a relationship because they were clueless that he had passed. And of course, were beating themselves up about that. And I said, it did make the news. However, it's also 4 years ago. So I was like, really, God? I don't need any more lessons on this book. All right? So wherever you are, God, do not give me any more lessons this week. And of course, they came. So the premise of the book, first of all, it says, daring greatly, how the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live, we love, we parent, and we lead. So whether you're in a relationship, is anybody not in a relationship with anything in the whole world? Nobody raised their hand. Good. Okay. Because you're in a relationship with yourself. So you can figure out how to be courageous in leading yourself. We always have to learn how to parent ourselves, love ourselves, and then how are we going to live? So the book came out when she realized, after reading a quote that Dan's going to put up by Teddy Roosevelt, that, oh my gosh, we need to have a change and a shift in our world. Do you have that? Okay, so what he said in 1910, I love it when people say, oh, what's new thought? I'm like, oh, anything that you didn't know of before. So Teddy Roosevelt said in a speech, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who, I don't know yes, this is right, okay. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man, and you have to remember in 1910 they were not politically correct, so you could put person in wherever you read man, okay? Oh, we're breathing. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. And this was what then gave birth to this whole book and all of the TED Talks that she's given, millions of viewers. She has the attention of the world. And so, 1910, it is not the critic who counts. So what she's saying is, you can listen and say, thank you for sharing. Or you can give them that international peace sign as you send them on their way. Their opinion is not more important than yours. That's something we forget to know early on, because it's just not how most of us are raised. So it's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles. Have you ever done that? I've done it, where I've stumbled and then I've laughed at myself, but everybody else is laughing. I've stumbled, actually gotten hurt, and everybody else is still laughing. I'm not laughing. Yes? Why do we laugh? Because it's uncomfortable, isn't it? You just watch somebody stumble, especially if it's somebody who has like on big girl shoes, or somebody of notoriety or something, or it's your brother or sister. Of course, we're always making fun of them. We laugh because we're uncomfortable that possibly they could be hurt. That's what we're trying to change. Can we just go, oh, are you okay, and not make fun? And then make fun later on after we know they're safe, right? That is part of it. It's always fun to make fun later on. But in that moment, can we not take away the dignity of another? Because that's what the laughter does. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. The arena means they've said yes. They get up in the morning, have coffee or whatever you do, put on your clothes, hopefully take a shower, whatever all your morning ritual is, and actually make a step out into life. The arena is life. Now, we all know people who don't participate in the arena, don't we? Why? Maybe now we'll have a new understanding. Oh, maybe they don't come out, or maybe they don't come to church anymore because they didn't feel welcome. Maybe they felt unaccepted. So there's different ways of understanding. Last weekend I was working with the church in Hollywood, and we asked them, what are your most uncomfortable moments when you come to this church? It takes a pretty brave minister to ask that. And the first two things were, I don't feel welcome. Now, they were there, thankfully, and I don't believe there's acceptance in this church. Where in all of their statements, it's about diversity and welcome and all of this, and there was audible silence. I mean, you could hear everybody's breath. Like, really? But now they're going to look at it because someone was courageous enough to raise their hand and say, I don't. I've been coming here for 20 years. I still don't feel accepted. Now, some of it might be their own issue. Let's be real about it, right? However, what we know is that this person, based on some things that happened, was ousted kind of a little bit, sort of, like uninvited. Why? So unless it's voiced, we don't know those answers. Now they'll be looking at those things. And so this is what this is talking about, who spends himself in a worthy cause. So let's have Andrew and Kayla and Dan and Suzanne and John stand up. All the musicians stand up. Kim, stand up. These are the people who spend themselves in a worthy cause. All the ushers, probably all of us could stand up. All the people who brought hospitality items. This is what it looks like to spend yourself in a worthy cause. Are you spending yourself in a worthy cause? And that's between you and your own understanding. And we're going to keep asking. That's our job, to keep calling you higher, right? So it's about knowing that even if we fail, although that's a made-up word, correct? I mean, not a made-up word, a made-up concept, because what's failing? We dare greatly. So that's what this book is all about. She says we spend our lives waiting until we're perfect or bulletproof. Anybody else done that? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Before we walk into the arena. Well, guess what? We've always said this in Unity. It's not about perfection, it's about excellence. Just do your very best. That's what the Four Agreements says as well. Another New Thought book, right? So forget about being bulletproof and forget about being perfect. There was no way my hair was going to be straight today. It just doesn't happen when there's 100% humidity. So why struggle? Just put it up. You're going to be hot anyway, Therese. So get used to understanding within yourself what it is that you might be putting upon yourself that you're trying to be perfect about, right? And let it go. If you have some problems understanding, ask a friend, where do I show up where I feel like I'm a perfectionist? There's nothing worse, is it, when you get everything all set up and someone comes behind you and then sets it all up again? Ew, worst nightmare for a minister trying to have a volunteer group. Just let the whoever's in charge just get the rules out, but then let them do what they do. And that's what ministers and licensed teachers and leaders try to develop in other leaders. Once it's done, it's okay, because it just is, right? And even BA, you said this morning, I forget what the notes are. Well, none of the rest of the musicians were like, you wrote the song, how come you don't know the note? They said, oh, it's a D, or it's a C, or it's a G, or whatever it was, right? Because it's all right. At least he showed up, right? He's in the arena today. He's in the arena. So she says in this book, I define vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. So since Tom has died, and since I've had some transition through churches, some by choice and some not by choice in Unity, I have become the face of what it looks like to dare greatly, to stand up and say, wait a minute, can we look at it this way? Could it be this? Can we review that? And some love when Therese comes in the room, and others are like, oh, shift, here she comes. And it's all right, because I'm not going to be backed down. I know when to speak and when not to speak and all of those things. But can we spend our life knowing that what we have is important? So there's a story about a little boy you might have heard. He was in 3rd grade, and he was told, the whole class was told, we want you to write a story about the biggest dream for your life, what you're going to be when you grow older. So this little boy's name was Tony, and he was the son of a horse trainer who was itinerant. So he didn't really ever had a home. He would just go from track to track, and he was really great at what he did. However, he never really provided a home for his children. No money. Kids didn't know any different. So this kid comes home from school. He's so excited, and he writes a 7-page paper. Wouldn't that be great for an assignment? Yes, Judy's a teacher, and talks about the 8,000-acre farm he's going to have, and the 2,000-foot house he's going to have, and all the different kind of animals he's going to have, and yada, yada, yada. And he goes on, and he's so excited about himself, and he shows up, and he's like, oh my gosh, I think this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is kind of like my blueprint. Okay, so he goes in, gives it to the teacher. Teacher's collecting the papers. Several days later, hands them all back out, and she hands the paper to Anthony and has a big red F on it. And it wasn't for fine. And she said, see me after class. Can't you just see that? Ooh, 3rd grade memories, right? See me after class. So he comes in after class, and he's like, how come you gave me, because he got his courage on, how come you gave me an F on this paper? She said, oh my God, it's so unrealistic. You're never going to have a life like that. Your dad goes from farm to farm, and you have no money, and look at your clothes, and everything else you would hope a teacher would never say. But we know that it happens, yes? So if you want to rewrite that paper, Anthony, then I'll consider giving you a different grade. So he takes the paper home, and he's crying, and he says to his dad, I believe this, Dad. You and I talk about this all the time. And he's standing in his courage, and he's got his bravery on, and he's just really adamant about it. And so the dad says, well, I believe this will be the most important decision of your life. So he pulls up his big boy pants, and the next day he walks in and he says to the teacher, you can keep your F, and I'm going to keep my dream. Isn't that fabulous? God, I wish, can you not think of things you wish you would have done when you were 8? Oh my gosh, I remember learning to ride my bike, So and later on, he did get the farm, the ranch. He did get the 8,000 square foot ranch and the 2,000 square foot house and all of that. And he started inviting over all the after school kids, come and learn how to work a ranch and ride the horses and all of that. Well, one day, guess who shows up? The teacher from HE double hockey sticks, right? So he says, and she says to me, oh my gosh, Monty, I can tell you now, I was the teacher that stole your dream. I wasn't able to steal yours, though. I tried to steal your dream, but I wasn't able to steal yours. And so she had her own moment of self-reflection and hopefully did some amends and all those other things you do once you realize, oh gosh, look at what I did, right? But he never gave up on his. However, had he listened, I was at a class this week and someone said, well, I don't draw because in 3rd grade. And I said, well, what's that over there? She decided she's going to have her own creativity corner. And she got an easel and some paints, and she said, I'm done listening to that voice in my head. Now, she hasn't even read the book yet, so imagine. So this is what we get to do. We get to put aside what no longer serves us, or what Janice Stanfield, as Renee so beautifully sang, if we choose to not listen to the voice of fear, are we able then to hear the voice of courage whispering in our ear that says, I am all the wonderful things that you already are? This is what we get to choose. So as I wrap up, some of the other known that we sometimes forget about, in 1885 in Concord, Massachusetts, the home of Thoreau, they banned the book Huckleberry Finn as trash, unsuitable for reading. In 1929, the whole country of Russia blacklisted Sherlock Holmes material because it was disgraceful. In 1931, China banned Alice in Wonderland because they thought it was sacrilegious to have animals talking as humans. What are they doing now at Disney? Oh my gosh, right? Like with Dory or whatever that movie is, right? The little jellyfish or whatever. So we get sometimes put in jail by other people, but we also have the key. There's often you'll see a bird cage that's open and the bird's still sitting in the cage even though the door is open. So what are you keeping yourself in prison about? And then the infamous one, of course, is the 6-year-old who came home with the note that said, "Your child is stupid." It was Thomas Edison. Really? Yes, it happens. And so we have no right to do that. We have no right to do that. So daring greatly means we get to choose, okay, I'm going to put on my coat of courage. And you know what that means? It means I've said my prayers. That's all that courage is and bravery is. We've said our prayers and we see it as so. The law of mind action that we call in unity. What we see with the third eye is what can actually be, as opposed with our small m mind that only sees the difficulties, right? So Oriah Mountain Dreamer says, "It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair and worry and bruise to the bone and do what needs to be done to feed those in your family. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came here to be," she says. "I want to know if you will still stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back." Have you experienced that sometimes when you've stepped out a little outside your comfort zone, others fall away? Yeah? Let them fall. It's okay. "It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what else sustains you from the inside when all else falls away." And that's what we're going to be covering for 4 weeks in this book, how to get our prayer courage on so that we can act boldly and audaciously and greatly when appropriate. Yes, always tempering it with wisdom. And so we're going to have classes after service for 4 weeks as well. You'll have questions that we'll go over. You are welcome to come and participate. You can come and just be an auditor, so to speak, not participating. We'll send them out via email. And today we'll wait a little bit so that we can enjoy the potluck together and then meet. And we'll meet for at least an hour unless you want to meet for 4. There's a lot to cover in 4 weeks. We'll meet as long as you want. It doesn't matter. And we'll receive a love offering for that and give it back to the church. I do this as part of what my sacred giving to Reverend Rose. So it says here, to love ourselves and support each other in the process of becoming real is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatly. So we start with ourselves and then we reach out to others. So one of the other things that's going to happen this week, and Suzanne's going to talk about it, all the other announcements, but the team that puts together the midweek lift, we're going to put on a World Day of Prayer service for you. It's Unity's World Day of Prayer, annual World Day of Prayer, and so Wednesday night we'll be doing that here. There'll be meditation, prayer, and service together, and we're moving it to 7 o'clock. We found that is better for people. We listen once we're told. It took a while for people to tell us. So going forward, midweek will always start at 7 o'clock. So this week, the team members who are available, Mike Kennedy and Dixie, myself, Paul Aiden's also a team member, as is Roz Lantham. And so if you want to be part of the Wednesday night team, let us know. But most importantly, come, let us pray with you. Let us start off a year together as we come into a pretty important fall season for us all and for the country as well, that we can discover the power within us. How interesting, that's their theme for this year, and that we're doing this book as well. So let us pray. Living, loving presence. We refuse to listen to the voice of fear, and we want that voice of courage to whisper in our ear. And we want to do what we know we have come here to do. We want to be who we've come here to be. And so we are grateful for this spiritual community that helps us clarify what that looks like, how we be and how it is that we love ourselves so much that our bright light shines and touches each other's souls and encourages each other to dare greatly, to do what we have come here to do. We are grateful. We say thank you. Amen.